And welcome guys to another little video of our little inventory series that we have for our FPS. Now there's a lot of simple ways that you could do this and other stuff, but I decided to go a little bit more simpler way this time. Now I went and changed the naming convention to bags, because later on we're going to redo this menu where we can do drag and drop and stuff for later on. But I wanted to show you guys this part right here. See, we have this M4 item right here, and it's in inventory, and I've changed it to a scriptable object. Doesn't change the way it works too much at all, and it actually runs pretty decently. The only thing about it is it's a scriptable object, and we're going to be doing it through the resources now. Now, there's a few reasons why I want to do it through the resources. A, we can load it up at runtime, and B, if you checked out my serialization and everything else, you know scriptable objects can be loaded up and things and have game objects, textures, and all kinds of other stuff in there, where if we went to a file system with binaries and other stuff, we can't really load them up efficiently. Some of them we can load up, but others not so much. Like game objects are a pain to serialize, and I want this to be as simple as possible, and scriptable objects will let me do that. I can also manipulate stuff using a file system later on if I wanted to in the scriptable object. Okay, I hope you followed that. And secondly, if I wanted to change something in the scriptable object, I can change it at runtime. Players, like this right here, I could change this right here at runtime and it will affect my game. But let's take a look at this bag right here. This is specifically what we're going to look at pretty much in this video. Now we have one, and I'm going to start up the game and all that stuff. It loads up. Boom, boom, boom. We're looking around just like usual. Okay. M4, we pull it up. There's only one. Okay. Well, watch how it happens when I load this up, and I'm going to put just 20 in here. And we have an array of 20 right here. Okay, so now I'm going to start this up, and there we are. Now let's study this. I open it up. There's still only one, so I won't have duplicates or anything little silly in my game. Okay. Now, we also have some other stuff that's instantiated. We got temp player, which has the soldier script on it. Before, we couldn't see this. So now I can expect this later on and see that all this stuff is here. We also got war systems. This is instantiated at runtime. Then we got this base.clone thing, okay, which is just what we're moving around on, right? Boom, 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 we're moving around. And there's really nothing on there really too important. So we can write logic later on that if this base thing right here gets destroyed, my temp player will reinstantiate it. But I don't have that logic in yet. But we still got the bags and everything else. You know, our inventory stuff. Now, we still got references to war systems. We can open up. And that little clipping is just due to I'm just too lazy to go in here and put depth camera and do the camera stuff right now, just because it's not important for us. And if you see, my stats really stay up very, very quickly. They stay pretty fast. Okay, and this also is with recording and all that good stuff. So, yeah, you got to keep that in mind. So, here we go. We still have pretty much everything that we had before. we've got a selected player in this game controller. This is something that I designed in the concept of later on in the game, we're going to have character selection. So we're going to need some kind of logic to go from one player to another. So I used selected player. Now, the player container, if you watch my last video, is a static class for mostly referencing because I don't want get component and some other things. And there's a few other reasons for that as well. We got a static reference to a player prefab. So our selected player at the start of my program will just go get it from the player container. Now I can hard code this in and everything else, but I want just one single line to do what needs to be done. And then we do war systems, and then at the last step we do player container get slots. And I have to do this at the end because I need this to be instantiated. Go time instantiates our player. Okay? So our player isn't instantiated yet until we hit this line right here. Okay? And then war systems is built, and then my player, which I'm pretty positive war system. Yeah, war systems has to be built before this because the player itself has a script on it. The script is actually based on what player we've selected. So okay, it's really simple. See, here's our instantiation. We get a game object, we instantiate it based on our player, which is determined by the selected. But we take game object P and instantiate this as well. The player object itself, the first one, is the base version. Okay, the very, very base version of it. Alright. This doesn't even have to be public here, actually, because we're doing it from someplace else. So this one is our base object, the one that doesn't have very much of anything. And I don't want to make it all one object just because it just doesn't make sense to me. And later, if you do a network game, I don't want all my main logic to be on the thing that we're going to instantiate through the network. Okay? I don't want it that way. Alright? Which would be very easy to make our character network enabled, which we'll look at later on if we need be. But we got this base version, and then we got our version of it, our selected version. This is the selected version that determines if it's a soldier, if it's whatever class that you designed through the system. You know, maybe you only have one, then I guess that'll work. But we also get the component here, which is an eye weapon. Okay, this is an interface version of it. An interface version also has the functionality to set. And this is where we get our character controller off our base thing. Okay? Which, yeah. This is like our base object that we instantiated. Now we're getting everything and we're passing it to character controller, which when we do that in our player, it will actually set up stats and other stuff. Let's see, where is that script for that? Player, soldier, temp player. Yeah, here it is. We'll go in here. when we do a character controller, this sets up our stuff. We no longer use this call, find object of type, which was stupid anyway. Object of type is very slow. And now we grab from the War Systems our file, which War Systems does one specific thing with this. It pulls out a scriptable object. I also pass it this as a filtering method. Okay. And this right here brings a scriptable object that passes all of our like run, step up, and things like that. And it also adds all the listener to our frame update delegate here. See, we had a bunch of call things on here and everything, and I didn't really like it that way because it goes movements, then it goes something else, then it goes something else, then it goes something else. So I went up here and it took these one-time call things, okay, and I added it to the frame update delegate because they're all going to be in the update. Weapon managing, inputs, input data date update, all that. What's inputs? Inputs is what again? Where is that? Inputs. There we go. It's a private. Oh, and it does the running and sneaking and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty unique. Okay, that's all we needed right there. This is in the other videos if you want to look it up. It's just a private function to do all the setup stuff. You know, new states and all that stuff. Pretty easy. And then we've got pretty much, yeah, this is our game controller thing. It's pretty small now. So let's go out of that. You can always pause and get that. Oh, we also set the reference to the player get slots in the player container. And the reason for this is we reference this in a static. Because when we go back to our buttons, this right here is stupid. It's very terrible and very dumb to do. Because if you got more than one game controller, which I don't know why you would, it will just pick one and it might not be the right one. So what I did was I put up a functionality right here. If spawn equals null, s player container dot get slots. So it'll get the reference from that. And then if s does not equal null, it does this version of it. Okay, and then returns. If it's null, if this is null for any reason, it does the slow, silly version right here. Now this is just due to, you know, something could be instantiated wrong or not there or something of the sort. So yeah. And then if spawned does not equal null for any reason, we still have to get the s.slots and do something. If it's not null, then we call s.destroy. And then s find object. For any reason my player container is not there, we go to the game thing. It's slow, but it works. Still, I do not like this call right here because this could go horribly wrong due to game controller stuff. But it does work. Spawn did not change, okay? But this function right here did. Now let's talk about this, because this is very sparingly how I want to do this from now on. We got this inventory item, and this comes from our inventory itself, what we have in our things, and this is how the button is actually set up. Now, let's look at that first. Okay. In our inventory menu, okay, item to player, we loop, okay, through our inventory array. Okay, our inventory array here, and this is of inventory equipment. Alright, so this will instantiate an inventory button and parent it to a transfer. That's all this function does. Based on what button we push, actually push out to our menu, is what slot it'll use. So if you used a button that's for, see, I only created one button, and it's menu button slot 1, because it's based on this interface right here, and it will only go to that slot. So this is where that's set up, and then back. Now we pull out the interface and do a get component. Now there's a very important reason why we do this, is because we did this before, but we didn't cache it like this. The reason why we're caching it now is because we got two functions here. We push out the item, okay, and then we push out what I call com.action, and we pass it this. Now, more than one case scenario, you're going to be trying to use this button for something. So this still does everything it's going to do. If we had an old spawn, we destroy it, so that way we don't have this weird thing happen where we have more than one gun or something. It's just basically a safety check. We still do the icons, we still do the highlight, but remember, we used to push this action to be this right here. Well, we don't do that anymore. This action isn't actually in the script anymore. I extended it from this. Okay, now this has the eye pointer click, normal, and all this stuff. Okay, but the action is protected. We can still see this and everything. We don't really need to see some of this. Okay, but it was basically the basic pointer stuff. Okay, you don't have to do this, but I thought it looked a little cleaner, so that way I concentrate on this stuff. But if you didn't touch any of it, it'll still work just fine. Now this action right here, this action has a signature of menu inventory. Then it pushes it to menu to player. The reason why I did this is, and I separated it, is for one exact reason. If I wanted to make a NPC and then sell stuff to it, or maybe destroy something, I want to push in a signature in this button. Okay, like let's say, let's copy this. Okay, this entire thing. Okay, we're gonna copy this. We're gonna put Control V. Now let's say player container is the signature for the action. I don't really care about what this is, but I'm telling you this is going to be some form of action that this is going to do. Now the button.action, I only want the reference to be passed in. Maybe I want to go in here and push this into something completely different. So I can go action the parameter version dot, and in the player container, oh, this isn't going to work because of that. So what? Let's do game controller. Let's do game controller. So we got action dot enable compare tag get player. So every time we push the game controller in here, it's going to do a function that's inside of the game controller for get player. Okay. And how is that useful? Well, guess what? If we went in here to game controller, okay, and we had this function in here that we want to happen. Okay, we're gonna put a public void destroy, which takes a game object, go, and then maybe we want something happens here, like we get monies. Okay, we get monies. Well, okay, well that's cool. So now we go in our inventory button, okay, and we pass the game controller for some idiotic reason. Who really cares? Okay, so now we can go action dot destroy, and we pass it this game object. Okay, why am I not allowed to do the best overload? Alright. Oh, duh, this dot game up. Okay, this dot game up. The signatures. What? Avoid to a system. Why? B action has no parameters. That's why. Oh, that's right. That's terrible. Okay. Well, that sucks. Alright, so I know that's a poor example, but I forgot all about it. This would actually be correct now. Really? Why is that not correct now? It should care. Really? Why is it not? Why is it acting that way? Public void. Really? It won't let me do that? Really? Perimeter game. Why? Oh, that's right. Because it's doing this. Oh, yeah. Can't use the little curly things like you're calling up a function. You're assigning a variable like type. Okay, yeah. So for whatever reason, we're doing this right here. Okay, so if we wanted to, now this, when the game controller gets passed into all of the buttons, it will do nothing but whatever's in this function, which can be debug.log. It can be who the heck knows, right? Maybe you're selling stuff, so that's what you want it to do. Okay, but you can do, as long as these buttons are active, you can get an array of probably items, or just well, we got them all comparing it to the same thing. So let's get rid of this right here before I forget it and stuff. We've got everything in there, but the whole point is the signature of this so that it knows what to do. So when we go down here, we can point a function to go back to this state right here, which is our normal state, or we can pass it something else. Because when we spawn everything in, we set the first one to be this action, which later on will be nothing, a dummy thing, where this won't happen. It'll be default null, and then we drag it into a hotspot, and it does get component, and it will be this call right here. This functionality will come very, very handy later on. I promise you this much. Because when you do drag and drop, let's say you drag it into a your player wants to put on some armor. Well, the armor has stats and everything, right? Well, when you drag that armor into the slot, it assigns all the variables into your status and your strength, your crit, and everything like that. But it needs the drag function there. Well, before that, it comes from the inventory. So your inventory has to do something, which could be if you click on your armor, it equips it, right? I mean, that sounds pretty legit to me. If you go and drag it out of the slot and put it into your inventory, then it does that. Or drag it into the slot. Who knows? I mean, it all depends on how you want to run your menus. But you don't want this button to be created multiple times. You just want to change what the button does. So that's where this action right here comes into play. Okay? This goes to the player for now, but later when we do moving, dragging, and dropping, it'll do cooler stuff later, which is going to be fantastic. So now we talked about the button, okay? We talked about these functionalities right here. Now let's talk about this dictionary. This dictionary, we add it based on the inventory.name. So whatever your scriptable object is, the name of it, it gets added one time and that's it. Okay? Dictionaries can't have multiples of the same thing based on their string. Okay? Let's see, what are we doing time-wise right now? 28 minutes. Well, I don't want this video to be too super long, so I'm going to cut it right here and have another video uploaded probably the same exact day and everything. Just, you know, the same thing, because it deserves a little bit more finessing in time-wise. I don't want to be in a big old hurry, because that just doesn't do well. So, thanks for watching. Peace out, everybody, and I will get another video right next to this one for you guys, so take care.